friends, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Today I am working on corralling my pieces of us photos and journaling into a mini album. I had shared on Instagram when Allie was first talking about this project that my plan was to keep my photos in this mini album I made. So this is a 4x6 mini album I made using some chipboard, some pieces from the Pieces kit, some Maggie Holmes Heritage, and I had planned to just take the photos, print them 4x6, put them in the mini album, and be done. You guys, I don't think I have words for what this project meant to me. For what I think it meant to this entire community. I will give you my final thoughts after I'm done making the pages, because every time I've talked about this project to other people, or every time I've just thought about this project, I've started crying because it was an emotional roller coaster. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen all of these photos. You have read all of my words. If you wanted to, I posted my journaling every single day. I am no shame. I mean, I'm not a stranger to taking selfies. Pretty much all I scrap are selfies. But this prompt-based photo thing, where we had specific prompts every day, just changed the way I looked at myself, changed the way I thought about myself, started changing the language I use about myself. I like to think that I'm pretty transparent. I like to think that I am pretty open and that I share a lot. But this project had me sharing things that I've never really shared in my scrapbooking before, like what it feels like to be a woman of color in America, what it feels like to be an Afro-Latina and to be straddling that border between black and not black enough and Hispanic and not Hispanic enough, what it feels like to have locked hair and how that's changed me. There's so much I talked about in this week of journaling and photos that I just never really, not that I wasn't writing about, I just wasn't sharing about it. And when I tell you this project had me I still don't have words. Again, when I try to do my wrap up at the end, I will try to be a little bit more coherent. But you guys, this was so good. I needed this. This was so good. And when I tell you I was writing, again, you probably will have already seen this, but when I tell you I was writing, Tashiana was writing. I was writing essays, writing novels every single day. There was just a million words about these prompts. And so I kind of regretted, once I started writing, confining myself to a tag book. But then it made me get really creative in terms of figuring out how to get these words in here. So I did some workshopping in my... You probably have seen this book already. Noah gave me this book for my birthday. It says Best On Ever. This is where I keep my memory keeping plans. So I did some workshopping on some plans on how to get this stuff in here. And I'm going to stop talking. I'm totally voiceovering this, you guys. This is going to take me too long to talk through it. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to attempt to make sense of this. And hopefully at the end of it, I will have a complete mini album. So again, let's get to work and I'll see you guys at the end. All right, crafty friends, so if you couldn't tell from how long this video is, this is a pretty lengthy process, and I'm going to do my best to voice over it to the best of my ability and not get distracted on 8 different tangents. On the bright side, a lot of what I'm doing is pretty self-explanatory. I'm literally building a mini album. So when I got started on this, I decided to kind of look at my December daily album and look at some of my other projects and figure out ways that I've hidden journaling in the past. Not because I actually want to hide the journaling on this project, but because there are so many words and it is so long that I had to be really creative about where I put my words, how I put my words, what I do with it. So you're going to see I do a lot of different things that you might have seen me do in the past in this mini, just so I didn't want to filter myself. I wanted the words the same way I wrote them for the prompt, the same way that I put them in my Instagram caption. That is how I want them in this mini album. Now, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how well this is going to hold up because it's literally just glue and paper. But for now, I really like having it and being able to flip through it and being able to hold a complete project in my hand. Had I put stuff in the page protectors, it probably would be a little bit more durable, but I wanted this the texture of this mini album, and that's what I went with. So for Monday, which is what we are working on, I decided to just do a pullout. So I printed my journaling. I had all the sizes written down. I don't remember what size I printed anything anymore, but I printed my journaling a little less than twice the size of a card. I know it's that much. And then I used some of those Darice foam strips. I will link everything that I can find in the description box for you guys. I used my Darice foam strips to attach it to my photo, and then I used my Martha Stewart scoreboard to score my journaling down the middle. The Martha Stewart scoreboard is one of my favorite tools. I don't know if I've talked about it here before, but it's one of my favorite tools for just making things because it's a 12 by 12 scoreboard, and it's scored at every quarter. I think it's every eighth of an inch actually. It's scored at every eighth of an inch. So you can get some really precise score lines. And then again, it's 12 by 12. So you can go as big as you need to. I like to use them to make rosettes. I like to use them to score down photos and journaling for projects like this. And again, for hiding journaling. So I went ahead and attached a little bit of a pink velvet ribbon to the journaling, so I have a pull tab also just so I remember that it's there. I have to constantly leave things for myself to remind myself that bits and pieces are there so I can find them again in the long run. And then since I had that white the white cardstock on the back of my printed journaling, I pulled out the Feed Your Craft Apollo stamp set and just decided to stamp out the word feet. I don't actually stamp on every day. I stamp on a lot of the days. But now that I'm looking back at it, I don't stamp on every day. And my plan was to stamp on every day. And then on some days, there just wasn't space for a stamp, or I just didn't think it was necessary. But for this one, I'm stamping. And I'm using Distress Oxides. I like to use the Distress Oxides for stamping like block alphas like this. Because unless I'm doing it wrong and there's a way to do it, you almost always get a little bit of like skipping in the stamp impression, and it makes it feel really distressed to me. I don't know if I'm doing it on purpose or this just keeps happening to me, but I always end up with a little bit of skipping on the impressions, and I like that. I find that it gives me that distress feel that I go for. I like my scrapbooking to be a little bit messy and a little less than perfect. And see, so now I'm tucking it in the space between my filler card and my journaling and my photo. And then I put another one of those Darice foam strips to kind of anchor everything in place. And now I have a pocket. And I had to use those foam strips to make sure that there was enough space for my journaling to fit in and out. Also, they create just a home for it. So they can't fall out the bottom, it can't fall out the top, and it fits in between the two pages perfectly. So now I'm working on Tuesday, which was day 2. And you'll see that I did a little bit of work in advance. So I had a few filler tags, filler cards, whatever you want to call them, made before the week started. And I just was really excited for this project. So I had a few filler pieces for 2 reasons. I thought that by having filler pieces, it would help me stick to the project better. Also, I just really wanted to like play with this stuff and get excited for it, and it worked. So that first filler piece that you saw me use on Monday, it was one of the cards from the Pieces kit, and then I just layered up some embellishments from the Maggie Holmes Gather collection. And then there was a card from the Pieces kit that had these circles that said Little Bits of Life, and they were exactly 1-inch circles, so I punched them out with a 1-inch circle punch. I ended up punching out all 5 of them, so I think I ended up with 5 of those circles. And the tag that I layered everything over says, "The art of living begins with being aware and looking up in order to truly see and experience the beauty that is already right in front of you." And oh my God, I saw that and I was like, yeah, 100% going in this album. That was from the Heritage Kit. And it was just a lovely sentiment, and it works perfectly. And then I used a stamp set from one of the stamps from the Pieces Story Kit stamp that said Pieces of Life right now, and just stamped it off a few times. And then on the filler card that you see on my desk right now that I think I do use it on the back of Tuesday, I decided that I was going to try to create a poem using the refrigerator chipboard that came in the Pieces kit, which was definitely an exercise. Oh, I probably should tell you what I'm doing. So I decided to make a flip out for my journaling for day 2. I'm getting distracted again. So I printed my journaling. I attached one of the cards that I printed out. I attached that to a 4x6 paper from the Heritage paper pad. And now I'm using the Ellie Studio Stanley Jr. outline stamp. I think this one's still on sale. I will link it in the description box if it is. It's really small, and they make an outline version and a filled-in version, and I'm just stamping the word hands on the side of the heart, just because there was empty space and I really wanted to fill it up, and I used my black VersaFine ink, which is my favorite ink for stamping detailed images. So I will tell you, which is what I was doing before, what my refrigerator chipboard poem is. It's not, like, obviously not grammatically correct because there weren't very many, like, conjunctions or words that I could use, but it says, weave pieces into real and complex being, fit the snippets, making it one piece, then whole. And I love the way that came out. And I just like layer them. So I did a bunch of ripped papers from the Heritage Collection. Oh, here I am having a bit of a meltdown. Wednesday, wow, can I tell you that Wednesday was a disaster. And I actually don't end up finishing Wednesday on camera. I had to reprint bits and pieces from Wednesday to get it done. And it didn't happen. I made a few mistakes. I punched the holes right into my journaling, and then I realized that when I stuck the cards together, you see the angry hands? That was the angry hands. That was genuine anger. I realized when I stuck the cards together that so the way I wanted this album to work was I wanted, as you flipped the page, you could read the words, which is why I am gluing each page together as I work on it, so that some things look upside down, but when you flip it open in the book, it's right side up. And I thought I double-checked my journaling a few times on Wednesday before I put it together, and I actually didn't, and so those two papers end up getting dispatched, and I ended up having to reprint them. So now we move on to Thursday. Since Wednesday was a wash, I will just have to go back and finish Wednesday. I actually still haven't, as of this voiceover, I forgot that I have to go back and do that, so I gotta go back and finish it. But for Thursday, my journaling for Thursday was really, really long, and I couldn't figure out what size to print it to make it work. And I ended up being able to fit all the words on a 10 by 5 piece of paper. And so I scored it 4 times, each at 2.5, at 5, at 7.5, and at 10. So I scored it 4 times, and then I make a vellum pocket for it. And I actually have my album in my hand right now. I might have to swap out the vellum for something else, just because it's a really tight fit, and the cardstock that I printed my journaling on, just because I wanted it to be able to handle being folded and unfolded, it is pretty thick. It's pretty thick weight, and it is popping the vellum off, but I just used some score tape to make a vellum pocket. I used 1/8 inch score tape, which is the thinnest that they make it. It's really good for things like this. This is the only time I'd actually grab score tape and not any other adhesive. But I stuck it down to one of those cards that I printed. This was another card from the Pieces kit that was 3x4 that I upsized to 4x6 and printed out. And then I put my journaling in the pocket. Now, to give myself a kind of easier way to get it out, I use my We Are Memory Keepers tab punch. And again, I will hopefully remember to link everything. But I use my We Are Memory Keepers tab punch, which just punches out a really cool tab. And then I use a scrap of a Heritage paper that I had sitting on my desk, and I punched out a tab, and I attached it to the back of my journaling using the score tape that I had on my desk, because 1, I get a really thin strip of tape, and 2, I already had it on my desk, so it just worked out perfectly. And then on this one, I decided to stamp. And like I said, I don't stamp on all of them, although right now I've done 4 days and I've stamped on 3 of them. But I haven't stamped on all of them. I'm 3 for 4. And I think I only stamp on 1 more day after this. And I just decided to stamp girl, because for my journaling, it said Dear Girl. And then I ended up having to cut off the girl, like the Dear Girl line, because it didn't fit in the pocket. So I just decided I was going to put that girl, stamp it down. This time I used Tattered Rose Distress Oxide. So I used Milled Lavender. No, that's not Milled Lavender. I used Victorian Velvet the first time, and now I'm using Tattered Rose. And I pulled out my Heritage embellishments after this, because I messed around with the idea of embellishing it a little bit more, like adding some sort of sticker or something, and then I changed my mind and put it all back. This whole time I was working on this project, you guys, I danced around a lot the idea of adding embellishments or just sticking to words and stories. And it was really hard for me to figure out what I wanted to do. And you'll see, eventually I end up deciding to stick to just the words and stories, but I really wanted to go back and add a bunch of embellishments, and that's just because that's my default scrapbooking style. I like things to be super embellished and to have stuff everywhere, and so I had to, I don't know, I kind of want to go back and add pretty things. I know it doesn't need it, but I kind of want to. So now I'm cutting down one of those 4x6 cards that I had printed, because I decided not to use it the full 4x6. I kind of wanted just the sentiment, and it says, hey you, let me just make sure I'm not misquoting it. It says, hey you, don't force pieces that don't fit. And isn't that great? Like, that is the Pieces kit just had so many good, like, sentiments and, like, cards and things about pieces that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So I just cut a little bit of another piece of cardstock from the Maggie Holmes Heritage Collection. I had it all on my desk because I knew I was going to be using it for this kit, for this project. And I had a lot of filler cards available, and I had a lot of filler cards made in advance, but I also knew that there was no way I was going to have filler cards ready for everything. And there was just no way I would know exactly how many cards I needed. So I kept everything on my desk because I knew I was going to have to make things on the fly, which is why you keep seeing me pull things from that corner, because I had the 6x8 pattern paper. I knew I had some other stuff on the desk, like you saw me pull out those cardstock stickers and just whatever I thought I would need. I don't end up using much of anything besides the paper, and then I've been punching holes using my Power Punch. I love that thing. Once I figured out how to use it, you guys helps me out a lot, by the way, because I couldn't figure out how to use it. But once I figured out how to use the Power Punch, it has quickly become one of my favorite tools for punching holes. So now we're moving on to, I think we're moving on to Friday. Yeah, so we're moving on to Friday, and Friday's prompt was half your face. And so for this one, I didn't have, my journaling for Friday and Saturday was actually not very long. So for Friday, I decided to do this thing that Allie did, that a lot of us have been doing in the community, because it's just a really fun technique, where you hide your journaling in something. So instead of hiding it in my photo, because I didn't want to cut into my photo, I hid it in my the paper that was right behind it. So it was one of those, another one of the 3x4 cards that I reprinted, 4x6 size, and it's the black one that says "Love You to Pieces," and I tucked my journaling into it, and then I used some more of the 1/8 inch score tape to tape it down to the filler card that I made. And that filler card is one of my favorites because it has velvet ribbon, and it has one of the portrait pieces from the Heritage line. It's such a fun filler card. It also has the Pieces heart. So it was it's the heart stamp from the Pieces collection that I cut on my silhouette. So I took it into Silhouette Studio, resized it so it would fit on a 4x6 card, cut it on white cardstock, and then backed it with papers from the Heritage collection, just like you would back any other cut file. And I think it came out really, I liked the way it came out so much. And then I just tucked my journaling into that card. And you see, I didn't put that card away, the photo away just yet, because I don't have a backing piece for behind that photo. And so every photo that I kind of just didn't want any empty spots in my album. So if there wasn't like words or photo or anything else, I had all these filler pieces that were just ready to back the photos. And that one didn't have one yet, which is why I left it out on my desk. For Saturday, I kept Saturday super simple because I didn't have a lot of journaling. So all I did was print my journaling the size of the photo, and put it right behind it. And that was it. So I did that, put it right behind it. And then I decided to do some stamping because I had that empty space underneath the words, and there was just a lot of space for the words. And I didn't want to just print that journaling like super huge because I think it would look really silly compared to everything else in the mini album. So I just stamped out the word her. I played around with stamping I played around with the idea of stamping the word body or stamping the word full, but I just liked the word her. I liked what it meant, like, because my journaling was about the girl in the picture. And so I just stamped the word her in Tattered Rose with the same stamp that I had on my desk, the Feature Craft Apollo stamp. And now we're moving on to Sunday. So you guys, we are moving right along with this mini album. I did this all in one sitting, and I think it took me about an hour and a half from start to finish to get all the bits and pieces together for the mini. So my journaling for Sunday, I printed it 7x8 because I think Sunday's journaling, either Sunday or Wednesday had the longest journaling of the whole week, and Sunday's prompt was reflect or reflection. And so I decided to reflect on myself, on my identity, and reflect on the project as a whole. So you know what? While I'm working, because you can kind of see what I'm doing, I kind of want to read you some of my journaling. Because like I said, you can read everything on my Instagram, but I think it's really important to hear the voice of the person who wrote things. I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about this again when I finally get my writing class up, because I am doing that. I promised I would do a writing for Memory Keepers class, so I will talk about it some more when I get my writing for Memory Keepers class up. But when I write with slam poetry in mind. I write thinking of the cadence, of the rise and the fall of words. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about my reflection journaling, because I think that journaling was really important to me, because it felt like this project had come full circle. Like, it was the last day, it was the last prompt, and so right now on screen, I'll tell you really quickly, what I decided to do was fold my journaling up so it was 3.5 by 4. I put a doily behind it just to add a little bit of softness, and because I had used a doily earlier in the week, I used a large paper clip to hold it closed because it was not going to stay closed otherwise, and that pretty much completes that card. I messed around with the idea of embellishing it a little further, but I really liked that portraiture pattern paper that I used to top the card, and I decided to keep this album really simple, so I stopped adding things and just glued it together. Now eventually I'll have to make 2 more filler cards, which you guys will watch me do, but I just want to read you a little bit of I think I'm just going to read the final paragraph of my reflection. Yeah, so I'm going to read the final paragraph. So it says, I see a wonderfully and gloriously imperfect girl, a girl who has begun the work of making peace with all her pieces, a girl who is learning the place between sweet surrender and forging full speed ahead, a girl who has spent the last week being confronted with her own flaws wrecked on the shore of all the less than perfects, and wouldn't you want to change this, and why are you this way? A girl broken open with love for the humanity in her, the humanity in us all, a girl lovingly held by all of the partners on this adventure, a girl who cried after reading You Are Beautiful more times in the last 7 days than ever before, a girl who bubbled over with gratitude for this place, for these photos, for the words, for the stories, a girl who has held space for all of you and was honored by a space of her own, a girl who is here, flawed and imperfect but gloriously complete, a girl who is and will always be the sum of all these wonderful little pieces stitched together by the threads of story and love and heritage and hope. And I think that was the perfect way to wrap up this Pieces of Us adventure. That little bit of journaling is probably one of my favorite things that I've written in a long time, but I'm telling you guys something about this project. If you didn't do this project, if you found this video somehow and you didn't do this project with the community while we were doing it, I highly recommend you take a week. You look at the prompts. You can find them on Allie's website. You can find them on my Instagram. You can find them everywhere. I highly recommend you take a week and you take these pictures and you look at yourself in all the bits and pieces that make you a complete person. And I think it'll just help. Like, if you don't fall a little bit more in love with yourself after taking these pictures and after being confronted with who you are as a complete being, then please let me know and I will eat my hat. That's what we'll do. But I'm sure that if you do this, it is going to change something for you. It is such a wonderful process, and I'm so glad we did it. So now I'm flipping through my album and trying to find where all the missing pieces are, like what I need to fill in, what I don't need to fill in. So I just pointed out one empty space that was still missing a backing piece. I'm playing with the vellum that is not sticking down. I really am probably going to have to go out and swap that with something else. I like the look of the vellum because it's transparent and you can see the stamping through it. But if it doesn't hold up, it doesn't hold up, So I might have to swap it out with something else. So I'm just flipping through it to see how it feels. And it feels really cohesive, you guys. It helped that I used one collection and one story kit. So obviously, if all the pieces come from the same place, it helps to get you a more cohesive project. But even with mixing the pieces kit and the Maggie Holmes collection, it all just feels really fun. And then when I took my photos, I intentionally alternated between a color photo and a black and white, and I think that also helps with the album because there aren't a ton of colors, because the color photos are pictures of me. So I tried to make, the only color photo that has a lot of color is the picture of my feet. All of the other color photos are just like close-ups of my face. So there's my skin color and what I'm wearing, which 90% of the time is black. I realized looking at these pictures that in all the color photos, I'm wearing a black t-shirt or a black long sleeve shirt. I wear a ridiculous amount of black. Although right now I'm not wearing black. So there you go. There's the exception to the rule. But in all the other pictures, it's just me in black. And then the pictures that are black and white helps to not introduce a bunch of color, which I'm sure isn't something that's necessary, but when I was taking the pictures, I was thinking about it with the end project in mind, and I thought it would be better in the long run if I had a bit of like a mix of black and white and color photos. Also, I took all of my photos except one indoors, so like I couldn't really play with like the fun lighting like everybody else does. I don't have great lighting in our apartment. And so it just helped to have things be black and white because then I could like filter things and edit them and do a bit of like creative things. So for my last two filler cards, for one card I just used a doily and then I put down a kind of metal with another one of those little bits of life, things that I had punched out of a card, and I added some of the refrigerator chipboard that I talked to you about earlier. And then for this last filler card, I just layered a bunch of hearts. So I have a cardstock heart, a chipboard heart, one of the felt hearts from the Pieces kit, and a cork heart. And then I stamped pieces of my heart a few times in VersaFine ink, and that completes pretty much all of the making for this mini album. That I think puts it all together. So what I do is I go back in and I stick down these filler cards to the places that they're supposed to go to, put everything down on the rings. I do clean up my desk. I'm watching this again and I'm like, how do I get anything done when my desk is this messy? But I do eventually go back and clean up my desk, fix my mini album, and then I'll come back on in a few seconds to talk to you and to flip through and to show you how this all worked out. So I hope you enjoyed this, you guys, and you will hear my voice again really, really soon. Okay, friends, so here is the complete, well, I say complete, but it's not really because I got to go back and reprint this since I ruined it. I don't know how I checked and double checked it 3 times and still managed to put it together the wrong way. So I just have to go back and open up my computer and reprint those pieces. But besides that, this is the completed mini album. It is not as chunky as I thought it was going to be. And the one real big chunky place is because I put this portraiture with this velvet ribbon, and that's like the most chunky element of it. So it's not as dimensional as I thought it was going to be. I thought about going back and adding some embellishments from the Heritage collection, but I think it'd be better to just let the words and the photos shine. So since you watched me make all of it, but you guys didn't really see how it works out, I'm going to quickly flip through this so you can see what this looks like. So here's my cover. This is so I will say, before the week started, I went in and kind of made like foundation pages for this. So I printed out a bunch of stuff 4x6. I made some filler cards that you would have seen me use. So I kind of did some work for it, and I'll just walk you through this. So this is from the Pieces kit. And then these PNGs were from a Week in the Life kit from a few years ago that I had the digitals for. So I just cut them on some vinyl and made my own transparencies to separate the days of the week. So here's my foot picture, and then you see there is my journaling, and it just kind of sits right in there. And then I just use a bit of velvet for a pull tab. Here was a filler card I made. I feel like since I have to go back and voice over everything else, I don't want to go through like each individual thing because you'll hear me doing the voiceover, but I just kind of want to flip through it so you can see how it works. So here's Tuesday, here's my photo, here's a little bit of a filler, here's my journaling, which flips out like that. Trying to make sure everything's on screen so you can see it. Here's Wednesday. Oh, and then I made, this is one of the things I did before the week. I wrote a poem using some of the refrigerator chipboard. Here's Wednesday. So Wednesday, I really wanted the words to shine because it was my favorite day of journaling. So this is where this will go, and I will reprint it and stamp like something right down here like I did for a few other days. Here's Thursday. Here's my photo, a filler card, cat hair everywhere. And then this pocket is really tight. I might have to go through and swap out the vellum for cardstock instead so I can put it on foam. I wanted the vellum so you could see the stamping through it, but it's really, really tight. I don't know if it's gonna last. So I gotta see, might sleep on it and decide. So I'm not gonna pull this out because it won't go back in. And then another filler piece. Here's Friday, my photo. And then my journaling is, I was testing this out in the video to make sure that I could actually pull it out, but it pulls out and it sits right in there. You just have to lift the tag up to get it off of the holes. And then another quick filler I did with some hearts and some stamping. And then Saturday my journaling was really quick, so I just stuck it right to the back, added some stamping. Sunday, so my photo, and then back here is the words. And then I just put a paper clip to kind of hold it shut. And then here is the end of my mini. So final thoughts, besides what I said already. I guess the first final thought is I really enjoyed this project and I really love having this mini. I love being able to go back through it and read the words and see what I was thinking, where my heart was, what I was feeling. I'm so glad that Allie made this a community project. I have, you guys, I saw so much more of you in this week than I think I've ever seen of any of you ever. And you know, you think you know people as well as you can know anyone that you know through the internet and you know through like what they make with their hands, but seeing people's faces and people's eyes and people's bodies and hearing the stories, like I read so much journaling. You guys are so brave and I applaud each of you that showed up for this project. And to everyone who left a comment on either my Facebook post or my Instagram post, you guys, thank you so much. I felt so loved that week. I mean, I still feel loved, but that week was just something magical and I am so grateful. I am so glad Allie did this. This is probably something that I'm going to come back to every year, even if this isn't a community project. I think for me, for my personal growth, this is something I'm going to come back to every year. And then to be able to flip through this and see, okay, well, this is what pieces of me looks like in 2020. What does it look like in 21? What does it look like in 22? How does that change? How does it look the same? I'm really excited for that. So that's all I have for you guys. I love the way this came out. I feel like I'm going to be flipping through this for a really long time. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this. I hope you enjoyed the flip through. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're so inclined. Let me know how you feel about the mini album. I'm a bundle of emotions, if you can't tell, which is why I'm not like super bubbly right now. But going back through it and seeing the photos again and seeing the words again, took me right back. So I'm going to, go make some tea and sit on this for a little bit, and I will see you around, guys. So till next time, keep it crafty and have the best day. Bye!